Speaker.
Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen, amen. Namaste.
Oath or affirmation, announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, I have received communication from Dr. Lakram Bodo, MP, member for Faisabad, who has requested leave of absence for the period May 17th to 28, 2019, and from Mr. Barry Padarath, MP, member for Prince's Town, and Mr. Prakash Ramada, MP, member for St. Augustine, and Mr. Stuart Young, MP, member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, who have requested leave of absence from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the members seek is granted.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the white paper on the revised national policy on persons with disabilities and action plan. Thank you.
Reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions, urgent questions.
Member for Naparimo.
Madam Speaker, to the Minister of Education. Given the recent stabbing incident of a primary school teacher and the clear breach of protocol owing to poor training, could the Minister state what urgent measures are to be taken to upgrade the skills of security personnel in the nation's schools?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the incident on record occurred at the St. Pius Boys RC School. An individual known to one of the teachers was allowed access to the school compound and attacked a teacher. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education considers the attack a grave assault on the education system. In response, the Ministry has reviewed the security and entry protocols for St. Pius Boys RC School. The Ministry does have an entry protocol system and is currently investigating why the protocols were not followed. In the interim, a number of specific recommendations were made for St. Pius Boys RC School. This includes mandatory interrogation of all visitors by security and security escorts for all visitors. The Ministry will also be holding discussions with the security provider, in this case, MTS, to review the training for all officers. In addition, the services of the Student Support Services Division and the EAP Employees Assistance Program have been made available to all teachers and the students. Thank you.
Member for Naparimo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, given the millions spent on security in schools annually, could the Minister state what are the basic training requirements of security officers at these schools?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, in our school system, we have MTS, as the major provider of security and maintenance services for the secondary schools. Some primary schools have availed themselves of the services of MTS, but most of the primary schools are serviced by individual security firms. Each firm is required to ensure that their employees undergo a rigid system of security preparation, and therefore we have been assured that this has been followed in all cases. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, could you advise this House if your ministry is giving any due consideration with due respect to upgrading the amount of security personnel in primary school, for example, from 1 to 2, depending on the number of gates and so on in the respective schools?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The situation will be addressed as the need arises. As I have been stating publicly, we have protocols in place for entry and exit of personnel in our schools. And in our estimation, these are adequate. However, in some instances, there will be breaches to these protocols, and as a result, there will be a need to review it. In the case of what has happened at the St. Pius Boys RC School, we are reviewing those protocols. Thank you very much.
Member for Naparima.
Madam Speaker, to the Minister of National Security. Given the recent discovery of a quantity of automatic rifles by customs officers while conducting physical searches of barrels of foodstuff, could the Minister state what urgent measures are being taken, including the operationalization of scanners at the ports, to deal with this burning issue?
Minister of National Security.
Burning issue. Madam Speaker, the recent fine of importation of illegal firearms at the port was by the Customs and Excise Division, which is the entity charged with the legislative authority to search upon entry into Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular, legal ports of entry. So, Madam Speaker, the system worked. Customs and Excise Division, Madam Speaker, as you will know, is a department of the Ministry of Finance. Nevertheless, the Ministry of National Security has been encouraging all arms of law enforcement to work closer together on information sharing and operations. The Minister of National Security has held meetings related to improving border security. There's additional work to be done at legal ports of entry, and the Ministry of National Security will continue to work with the Ministry of Finance along with Customs and Excise on improving this, as we believe more and more can be done. The scanner at the port have been in operation for some time now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental, member for Naparima.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, given the prevalence of guns in which and information that over 80% the murders in Trinidad are gun-related, would you not agree that the procedures and systems and protocols in place are not working, and therefore we are at risk?
I will not allow that question. Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, could the Minister inform this House which government entity has been officially commissioned to investigate the recent crash landing of the National Helicopter Services Limited at Windy Hill, Aruca, and when will it complete its report?
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, I'm sure that the member has asked this question just for the excuse to ask it. The member must know that the authority for investigating this accident and any similar accident involving an aircraft is the Civil Aviation Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. And every member of Parliament should know that, and the member knows that. And to ask now, Madam Speaker, as to when it will be completed is facetious, because this is an investigation that will be properly done under law, and I can give you no indication as to how this will be done, and the authority of the Civil Aviation Authority will not be usurped.
Supplemental, member for Vancouver South.
Prime Minister, could you inform this House whether the National Helicopter Services Limited and its pilot was certified to carry out a law enforcement operation of this nature?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, since the question has been put, I have no such information and I will not attempt to answer it. I know what my expectations are, and if the member files that question with the appropriate notice, then a proper answer can be given. But I will not be joined into making a statement that I do not know the answer to.
Member for Vancouver South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister inform this House whether, well, in this instance, the Minister has commissioned an official inquiry into the escape of 8 prisoners from the remand section of the Golden Grove prison Aruka, and what are the terms of this inquiry?
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service has to provide the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of National Security with a report on the escape of 8 prisoners from the Golden Grove prison at Aruka. A decision as to whether an inquiry is necessary will be made after this report is received and digested.
Supplemental, member for Vancouver South.
Prime Minister, could you inform this House if there was a full complement of prison officers on duty in relation to when this escape occurred?
I would not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Point Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of National Security, given the reported statements by Prisons Commissioner Jared Wilson that the prisoners who recently escaped from the Golden Grove prison scaled 2 perimeter fences and escaped, could the Minister state why the perimeter of the prison is not properly monitored and manned by the prison guards?
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, the conclusion is not necessarily in keeping with the fact as initiated. The fact that there is a fence does not mean that fencing is the issue, because, Madam Speaker, the UNC administration spent $80 million on a 2-fence system surrounding no prison facility near the maximum security prison in 2014-2015 as a perimeter fence, and that fence is still there as far as I'm aware. Madam Speaker, what we had expected was that that fence, or a fence, should have replaced the fence at the Golden Grove prison at Aruka at much less cost. The government is in the process of improving the remand prison at Golden Grove and has asked the prison authorities urgently to provide a relevant proposal on this matter of fencing to improve prison facility security.
Supplemental, member for Point Appeal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, if the 2 perimeter fences is not the issue, as you just stated, what was the issue that 8 prisoners were allowed to escape?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, I have just indicated that there's a report to come, and when that report comes, we'll be able to answer that question.
Member for Vancouver North.
Madam Speaker, to the Minister of Communications, could the Minister confirm whether the memo and its contents circulating to social media addressed to National Library and Information System Authority staff are authentic?
Minister of Communication.
Madam Speaker, the memo from the Executive Director of NALIS was disturbing, and immediately upon sight of same, the Minister of Communications requested that the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Communications make an official inquiry of the Executive Director as to its authenticity and the contents of same. Neither the Permanent Secretary nor the Minister were apprised of any situation warranting this memo. The preliminary report that has been received suggests that this memo may have been ill-advised, and the Minister has requested the provision of documentation surrounding the existence of money which NALIS has in its possession, which would negate the effect of the content of the memo. It appears that the executive director was ill-advised to author such a memo. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Supplemental, member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Minister, can you confirm, therefore, that there are sufficient funds to purchase water and toilet paper for the staff at NALIS?
Minister of Communications.
Madam Speaker, our information is that NALIS does have an account with $26 million in it, and as a consequence of that, we find it quite curious that such a memo would have been authored, and we are very concerned about that. We are trusting that it was not politically motivated, especially given the fact that our information is that the memo was also sent to Devon Maraj.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of Education, in light of an examination security breach during a Caribbean secondary education certificate exam at a secondary school, could the Minister state what action is being taken to avoid further examination breaches?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a dedicated hotline has been set up at the Ministry of Education section, at the Ministry of Education examination section, where examination supervisors and the coordinators can call for support on any examination-related issue. 2, principals have been reminded to apprise students sitting the CSEC and the CAPE examinations of the need to adhere to the guidelines set for examinations by the Caribbean Examinations Council, that is CXC. 3, examination coordinators have been requested to monitor centers closely to ensure strict adherence to exam protocols. And 4, principals have been requested to monitor examination centers on a daily basis to ensure that exams are conducted in accordance with CXC prescriptions. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, are there any innocent, uninvolved students who will be negatively affected from this examination breach?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, at this point, an investigation is being conducted, both by the Ministry of Education and the CXC. And until those results are made available to us, we are unable to provide any answer to that question. Thank you very much.
Questions on notice, questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are 8 questions for oral answer. There are no written questions. We will be answering 7 of the 8 questions. We are asking for a deferral of 2 weeks regarding question number 209.
Okay, so the deferral of 2.
If I may, we also asking for deferral of 208. We are ready with the answer, but the member is not here, and we would really prefer him to be here in order to answer any supplementals. Thank you.
So questions 208 and 209 are deferred as requested. Question, member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 170 on behalf of the member for Oropouche West to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Madam Speaker, according to information provided by officials of the Trinidad and Tobago Forensic Science Center, no direct relationship has been established between the number of firearms seized and the number of murders committed. With regard to Part B of the question, there are currently 4 scientific officers assigned to conduct ballistic testing at the Forensic Center. Part C, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has provided information on seized illegal firearms that were analyzed for country of origin for the period 2014 to 2018. 27 countries of origin were identified, and these are Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, China, Colombia, Croatia, Czechoslovakia, Germany, Hungary, Israel, Italy, Philippines, Romania, Russia, Serbia and Montenegro, South Africa, Soviet Union, Spain, Switzerland, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, United States of America, Venezuela, and Yugoslavia. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that the tracing of seized illegal firearms to ascertain the country of origin have proven to be difficult for the following reasons. 1, erased serial numbers or manufacturer markings. 2, gun dealers in the country of origin may be closed down or never registered the firearm. And 3, improper submission of firearms to the Trinidad and Tobago Forensic Center.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. To the question number 183, to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Education recognizes that in-depth and comprehensive analyses are required to address reported shortages of skilled labor in Trinidad and Tobago. It is perhaps critical to firstly determine whether reported shortages are quantitative or qualitative in nature. That is, whether there is a numerical shortage in individuals needed with specific occupational areas, or whether there are deficiencies in the actual skills and competencies possessed by persons already employed in the current workforce. Such determination, Madam Speaker, is no simple task, and the Ministry of Education continues to engage actively with other ministries in the interrogation of the issue. While not representing all the existing shortages, the ministry is cognizant of ongoing shortages in the manufacturing, creative, allied health, and the maritime sectors. The National Training Agency has completed vacancy surveys in several sectors, including the maritime sector, and is in discussion with the Ministry of Trade to engage in a vacancy survey for the manufacturing sector. Additionally, a collaborative approach for a comprehensive vacancy survey for Tobago is in train with the Tobago House of Assembly. Finally, Madam Speaker, a skills forecast assessment for the tourism sector is also planned for initiation in this fiscal year. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, could you indicate, since you said that the National Training Agency was responsible for the vacancy allocations, could you tell us when was the last labor market survey completed by the National Training Agency?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I am not too sure whether I heard the member for Chaguanas East correctly. I never said that the National Training Agency is responsible for vacancy identification as such. What I said is that the national agency has completed vacancy surveys in several sectors, and therefore that question doesn't arise. Thank you very much.
Supplemental, Member for Chaguanas East.
Honorable Minister, could you give us the date of that survey that was last completed?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, unfortunately, I did not come prepared with such information. And of course, if the goodly member for Shogunas East would like, I will be happy to provide it to him in writing. Thank you very much.
Member for Shogunas East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On question number 184 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, with regard to the ECCE centers under construction in September 2015, let me repeat, under construction in September 2015, a total of 10 ECC centers were completed and put into operation, a total of 10. Of these, 9 had been prematurely handed over to the Ministry of Education in August 2015, just before the general election.
That is sad.
And these did not have all the necessary statutory approvals, nor did they have outlined other approvals. Under our tenure, Madam Speaker, 8 of these ECC centers were able to be properly operationalized under our tenure. And these are Caroni SDMS ECC, Palmis Government ECCE, Faizabad Government ECCE, Kunjal Government ECCE, Warrenville TIA ECCE, Ravinsab ECCE, Berukal SDMS ECCE, and St. Anne's Government ECCE. The Larifin Center was opened a few months later in January 2016. The Ministry of Education had to resolve legal and other issues affecting the operation of the Aruka Pinehaven SDA Center, which was subsequently opened in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, could you indicate the reason why in September 2015, even though the Dastrace Enterprise ECC Center was reportedly 99% completed, why after 4 years it has not been completed and operationalized?
Member, Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, the information that is available to me now is that that center, among other centers, did not have the requisite statutory approvals. And as a result, they could not be opened. Thank you.
Supplemental, member for Shogunas East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Minister, could you say after 4 years and continuing, when do you expect the statutory approvals to be received?
Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, at present we are working assiduously to ensure the sins of the past are rectified. Thank you very much.
Member for Oropuch East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Oropuch East, question number 206 to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The total operating profit made by Caribbean Airlines Limited on the Port of Spain to Havana route since its commencement under this government in 2018 amounts to US $944,484 or TT $6.42 million profit made under this government on that route. By comparison, the Port of Spain to London route, which was commenced by the last government, lost US $36,049,543 or TT $245 million over the period 2012 to 2016. Okay, by comparison, the Port of Spain to London route, which was commenced by the last government, lost US $36,049,000. What is going on?
Member for point of order. As far as when a question is asked, the member will answer the question as he sees fit. Member for Diego
Speaker,
Martin.
I'll have to
no,
start
please.
again. Madam Speaker, the total operating profit made by Caribbean Airlines on the Port of Spain to Havana route since its commencement under this government in 2018 amounts to US $944,484 or TT $6.42 million in profit under this government. By comparison, the Port of Spain to London route, which was commenced by the last government, lost US $36,049,543 or TT $245 million over the period 2012 to 2016. Indeed, Madam Speaker, over the period 2010 to 2015, under the last government, Caribbean Airlines lost $3.5 billion.
Member for Chaguanas East. Are you still asking question number 185?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll allow you to ask it now.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question 185 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, all ECC East centers, government and the government-assisted, have received salary payments for the period September 2015 to March 31st, 2019. These payments, in order, are as follows. In September 2015 to July 2016, 140 ECC centers received payments. For the period September 2016 to July 2017, 137 ECC centers received payments. For the period 2017 to July 2018, 138 centers, ECC, received payments. And for the period September 2018 to March 2019, 139 ECC centers received payments. Madam Speaker, the variation in the number of ECC centers is as a result of the merger of existing centers as well as the construction of new ones. Thank you very much.
Member for Urupuch West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Urupuch West, question number 207 to the Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Fire Service of Trinidad and Tobago has been allocated $31 million under recurrent expenditure and $7 million under capital expenditure in fiscal 2019, respectively, for the procurement or refurbishment of fire vehicles and equipment. As soon as the Ministry of Finance receives a request for these funds from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, the funds will be made available as a priority.
Supplemental, member for Pointe-à-Pierre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Am I to hear the Minister of Finance correct that the Chief Fire Officer of the Permanent Secretary has not asked for any funds for the financial year so far of 2019?
Minister of Finance.
No, you did not hear me correctly, through you, Madam Speaker. I said as soon as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security requests funds for this purpose, the funds will be made available as a priority.
Panaparima.
Minister aware that our fire services are severely under-resourced, such that if an appliance in Princestown will take 2 hours to reach the Marak, when the benchmarks are 5 minutes.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The $7 million allocation to the fire service for capital and the $31 million allocation for recurrent for fire vehicles is not to pull a fire truck out of a ditch. It is for the acquisition of equipment. So the Ministry of Finance has allocated a total of $38 million for fire vehicles, and as soon as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security requests the funds, they will be made available as a priority.
request for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers.
The Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have been authorized by the Cabinet to make the following statement. The National Policy on Persons with Disabilities is the result of a comprehensive, consultative, and participatory process and is reflective of Trinidad and Tobago's commitment to the continuous enhancement of the well-being of persons with disabilities. It is also in keeping with our obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which was signed by Trinidad and Tobago in September 2007 and ratified in June 2015. The policy provides a comprehensive framework for achieving social inclusion and equality of opportunity of all persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago. It is of fundamental importance that particular attention is paid to this segment of our population, as failure to do so would mean exclusion of a significant portion of our national human resource asset. The 2011 Trinidad and Tobago Population and Housing Census indicated that there were approximately 52,244 persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago. This represented a 14.8% increase over the previous census. Given the trend, it can be reasonably concluded that over the 8 years since the conduct of the last census, the population of persons with disabilities has increased. It means, therefore, Madam Speaker, that there exists among us a cohort of persons who, to a large extent, despite their disabilities, are gifted with intellectual and other capabilities and capacities that, once given the opportunity, could participate meaningfully in every sphere of our national development. The National Policy on Persons with Disabilities is rooted in the realization of that vision and to the notion of leaving no one behind as we journey toward the goal of developed country status. The policy is guided by the following principles: non-discrimination, accessibility, equality of opportunity, respect for difference and acceptance of persons with disabilities as part of human diversity and humanity, respect for inherent dignity, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one's own choices and independence of person, equality between men and women, full and effective participation and inclusion in society, respect for the evolving capacities of children with disabilities, and respect for the rights of children with disabilities to preserve their identities. Accordingly, the objectives of the policy are to: 1, protect and promote the human rights of all persons with disabilities, provide a framework that will guide the development of public policy to incorporate disability-related issues, eliminate marginalization of and discrimination against all persons with disabilities, ensuring effective access to justice, empower persons with disabilities and their families to participate in discussions on the implementation of disability-related initiatives, provide national direction for greater inclusion and the participation of persons with disabilities in social, educational, cultural, economic, and recreational aspects of society, reinforce institutions and establish additional facilities to enhance provisions of services to persons with disabilities, provide the atmosphere for the participation of persons with disabilities in the decision-making and implementation process, and create a barrier-free environment to allow for independent functioning of persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, the national policy outlines a wide range of critical areas under which strategies would be implemented towards achieving the policy objectives. Some of the major areas covered include institutional arrangements and legislation, awareness raising, accessibility, education, work and employment, the needs of women and children with disabilities, health, habitation, and rehabilitation. Madam Speaker, the National Policy on Persons with Disabilities was finalized after several months of collaboration with our stakeholders, including the community of persons with disabilities, individuals and organizations that advocate for persons with disabilities in the civil society sector, the private sector and academia, ministries and agencies. I take this opportunity to express my sincerest gratitude to all who were involved in the drafting of the document, those who participated in the many consultations that were hosted by the ministry, and others who would have submitted their comments and recommendations on the green paper. Special thanks is extended to the committee headed by former Independent Senator Mr. Ian Roach, which assisted with the revision of the policy following the receipt of comments from the public consultations. We are now embarking on the critical implementation phase, which will be interministerial and intersectoral. I therefore look forward to a similar kind of collaboration from our stakeholders, which I am confident will be forthcoming, given the genuine interest we all have in advocating for persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, it is therefore my distinct honor to have made this statement on behalf of the Cabinet. Thank you.
Speaker, 24 please.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, I would like to find out, you indicated in your statement that there's a process that you're going to have to eliminate the marginalization and to ensure participation. How does the ministry plan to ensure that marginalization is eliminated from the persons with disabilities and to ensure participation? And what about the National Center for Persons with Disabilities in Castlefield when it opened?
One question for elucidation. So which is the question? There's one question you're allowed for elucidation. Which one is it?
The first one, the marginalization. How does the ministry intend to eliminate marginalization?
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Madam Speaker, the intention is to amend legislation that may contain discriminatory provisions. We are also going to provide and implement new legislation that would ensure equality and recognition before the law. I would have also made reference to an awareness campaign. The intention of that campaign is to build awareness among citizens within Trinidad and Tobago so that they can have a better appreciation for persons with disabilities and also learn how to best interact with those persons. Madam Speaker, we will also be looking at the whole issue of education, where we are looking at the whole system of equality of opportunities and inclusion, and this is going to be from the early childhood to the tertiary level. So there are a number of objectives and plans within the policy, Madam Speaker, that are going to treat with the issue raised by the member for Kumuto Manzalila. I also wish to indicate, Madam Speaker, that after 2 years, this government has been able to get the necessary statutory approvals, and the National Center for Persons with Disabilities was formally recommissioned in December 2018. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Personal explanations, introduction of bills on the supplemental order paper, the miscellaneous provisions, petroleum production levy and subsidy, and income tax bill 2019 in the name of the Minister of Finance. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by Minister, Public Business, Government Business, motions.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas Section 122, subsection 3 of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Chapter 101, the Act, provides that the President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management to be appointed as members of the Police Service Commission, and whereas Section 122(4) of the Act provides that the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives. And whereas the President has nominated Mr. Roger Mark Kewal Singh to be appointed as a member of the Police Service Commission, and whereas the President has on the 4th day of April 2019 made a notification in respect of the nomination, and whereas it is expedient to approve the notification, be it resolved that the notification of the nomination of Mr. Roger Mark Kewal Singh as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Madam Speaker, Mr. Mark Roger Kewal Singh is before this House as submitted, as described, for consideration of this Honorable House. An action of Her Excellency the President, who would have searched across the national population and would have selected a citizen in whom she would have been satisfied, warrants this appointment to the Police Service Commission. Mr. Roger Mark Kewal Singh would be widely known in the legal profession as a practitioner of some long standing. Those of us who do not practice in that profession may not know him, and therefore, Madam Speaker, it is incumbent upon me to say a few words of further identification of the nominee of Her Excellency the President. Roger Mark Kewal Singh, I dare say of San Fernando, was born on December 26, 1967, and he is a father and married with 3 children. He obtained his primary education at Princestown Presbyterian School between the years 1972 and 1979. He attended St. Stephen's College between the years 1979 and 1986, where he obtained his O and A-level certificates. He later attended the University of the West Indies between 1987 and 1991, where he successfully completed first year in the Faculty of Arts and General Studies, and then he transferred to the Faculty of Law in 1988. In 1991, he graduated from the Faculty of Law with an LLB honors degree. Between 1991 and 1993, he attended Sir Hugh Wooding Law School, and in 1993, he graduated with a legal education certificate. Since then, Madam Speaker, he has been practicing as an attorney at law. At present, Madam Speaker, he practices as an attorney of law continuously and served in a variety of chambers. He served in a chamber between 1993 and 1994, another one between 1995 and 2008. He was attorney with Hobson's, as attorney at law and notary public. And in 2000, he became a partner of the well-known Southern law firm of Hobson's. Madam Speaker, currently he practices as an attorney at law in the specialized area of civil and commercial litigation. In his own independent practice, I'm advised. Madam Speaker, Mr. Kewal Singh is a member of a number of community organizations because notwithstanding his busy and successful practice, he's engaged in other non-legal matters of community. He's a member of the following clubs. He's a member of the San Fernando Yacht Club, a member of the Pointe-a-Pierre Sports Club, a member of the Queen's Park Cricket Club, the St. Mary's Superstar Sports Club, and the Trinidad and Tobago Lawyers Cricket Team. He was formerly a director of the Southwest Regional Health Authority between 2000 and 2001, and the National Commission for Self-Help between 2009 and 2010. He is formerly a member of the Appeal Tribunal of the National Insurance Board of Trinidad and Tobago, and he formerly served as an associate tutor at Sir Hugh Wooding Law School. Presently, Madam Speaker, he's a committee member of the Disciplinary Committee of the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, we have difficulty from time to time encouraging highly qualified members of the national community to take up responsibility in the public service. Unfortunately, on many occasions, Madam Speaker, for one reason or the other, persons who are qualified and desirable, on being approached to serve on these various state agencies, which, if they agree, bring them under the classification of persons in public life. Usually, I would say, not commonly, but usually, decline the invitation to serve. And sometimes, not without some persuasion, one might be able to get quality persons to serve in public life in Trinidad and Tobago. This, Madam Speaker, is not a good thing. And therefore, when any individual, any citizen, agrees to serve the public on boards and authorities or in any way, in inquiries and commissions, it strengthens the country's ability to perform. Because these aspects of contribution by persons with expertise, persons of integrity, persons with the time to assist the public in the overall management of the state's affairs. When this happens, Madam Speaker, we should be pleased. And on this occasion, Her Excellency the President, in discharge of her responsibility, having made necessary checks, one would presume, and would have consulted, as I said, with the head of the government and the head of the opposition. And I know from my own standing, where I was at the office of the Prime Minister, would have, on the basis of the qualification and stature of this individual, I would have concurred and listed no objection to this person who has served, as I described a while ago, and who is willing to continue serving the public on this occasion as a member of the Police Service Commission. I'm pleased, Madam Speaker, today in this House to commend Her Excellency's nominee to the House for affirmative action. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Honorable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that the notification of the nomination of Mr. Roger Mark Kewal Singh as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are here today to debate the nomination and approval of Mr. Roger Kewal Singh as a member of the Police Service Commission. We on this side, we have examined his CV and note that he's an attorney at law for 26 years. Studied at UWI, as the Prime Minister said. He was the class of 1991, completing his LLB, and then further continued his studies at the Sir Hugh Wooding Law School, the class of 1994, completing his legal certificate of education. We on this side wish to ask a number of pertinent questions as we represent the views of significant proportions of the population. And we are asking the question, why this nomination at this time? We're asking, what is the urgency, especially given the fact that the Police Service Commission, as constituted at present, can function effectively and it can do its job. The Public Service Commission regulations state that a quorum consists of 2 persons, not including the secretary, and decisions are the Police Service Commission, and decisions are made on a majority vote. So the quorum is 2, and decisions are made on a quorum by majority vote. Therefore, the PSC, as currently constituted, is fully functional since 4 out of 5 positions are filled. Furthermore, these positions are filled by persons who satisfy the constitutional requirements under Section 122, where persons appointed to the PSC, Police Service Commission, should be, and I quote, qualified and experienced in the disciplines of law, finance, sociology, or management. At present, on the Police Service Commission, we have a chairman, Ms. Bliss Sipasad, and she is significantly and eminently experienced in financial management. We have as a member Mr. Martin Anthony George. He's an experienced lawyer, and he also has significant management experience. We have Commodore Anthony Stafford Franklin. He's a member, and he has a diploma in international humanitarian law and significant management experience in the Coast Guard. And we also have Dr. Susan Craig James, and she has a Doctor of Philosophy in Sociology. So we have a functioning Police Service Commission with members that are eminently qualified based on the requirements of the Constitution. So we are asking, why the haste at this time? Do we not have a plethora of pressing issues that need urgent attention? And therefore, is the government committed to the productive use of parliamentary time? And the question we would ask, the more important question, is why are we not discussing the more important appointment of a Deputy Commissioner of Police, given that the murder rate is now over 194, and that we need all hands on deck? So we are saying, if you want to deal with the commission, deal with the appointment of the Deputy Commissioner of Police. And that, we say, in our view, is more important than an additional member to the Police Service Commission.
I just want to caution you on not just relevance, but it would appear to me that the question that you're asking really is flouting Standing Order 48.8. Because what we are debating here is the notification of the president. And I've sat and I've listened, but it appears to me that what in essence we're doing is inquiring into the conduct of Her Excellency. I'm not sure that that is permissible.
Madam Speaker, I will move on. The order the paper talks about a debate in terms of the notification. And I think that is what all I'm doing, that's all. But I will be guided by you. I'll just need to make one other statement, and I think it is important.
Statement does not offend the standing orders, and I've given you some guidance. There's no reason. There's no reason at all for me to intervene once you're within the standing orders.
Madam Speaker, I am not in any way questioning Her Excellency. She did her work. She has done what is required by the Constitution. And all we are saying is that given that she has done her work and that this government is not doing its work, it appears as if the priorities of the Parliament are not skewed in the wrong direction. Absolutely no comment on Her Excellency. In fact, we commend her for this appointment.
But you see, the issue is not so much that, but if what you are querying is the reason why this notification has reached here for debate, in fact, I've seen it as if you're querying, Your Excellency. And that's why I've said that I've stood on standing order 48.8, and I've asked you to leave that and go on, please.
Madam Speaker, I'd just like to ask, who sets the priority for these appointments? Not the government?
Madam Speaker,
Not the Parliament?
Madam Speaker, I will ask you again to give your reflections on 48.8, because I do believe that the member for Naparima is persisting.
Madam Speaker,
Member for Naparima, as I said, and I'm firm in my view, that a notification is done by Her Excellency. It is set by Her Excellency here. Please move on.
Madam Speaker, we note that consultations were done between Her Excellency the President, on the one hand, and the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition on the other hand. Madam Speaker, further information has come to hand since the consultation that, having regard to all the circumstances, that Mr. Kewal Singh is not a suitable member to be a member for the Police Service Commission. I am making this observation in the context of the axiom that justice must not only be done, but it must manifestly appear to be done.
Madam Speaker, this is the President's notification. Again, I ask you to rule on 48.8.
While it is the President's notification, I will allow the President, the member, he's not talking about the notification now. He's talking about the suitability. I will allow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am making this observation in the context of the axiom that justice must not only be done, but it must manifestly appear to be done. In the circumstances where power is devolved upon a person to make critical appointments, there must not be one iota of doubt about this in the mind of the average citizen about that individual. It must be, that person must be above reproach, must be like Caesar's wife. That is what the framers of our Constitution envisaged. And it is our job to raise the issues and raise our concerns on the floor. Madam Speaker, it is important that our independent institutions like the Police Service Commission must function as they were intended to by the framers of our Constitution. And we will make the argument why we are supporting the position that we are. Madam Speaker, independent institutions. Independence must be independent, and there must be an arm's length relationship with the state. And I'll go on to say why I'm saying that, so that we'll have the necessary objectivity. the necessary dispassion, the necessary detachment required in the circumstances as envisaged by the framers of our Constitution. Madam Speaker, I am possessed of a High Court ruling, which is a public document. I'm possessed of the, between Vincent Nelson, Queen's Counsel, as claimant, and the Honorable Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago as defendant, in which Mr. Kewal Singh appeared on behalf of the claimant, the Queen's Counsel, Vincent Nelson. He was instructed by Mr. J. Mohammed, and they both represented, appeared on behalf of Mr. Nelson. Now, nothing is wrong with that, Madam Speaker. Nothing is wrong. Lawyers represent clients on a daily basis. That is their work, that is their job, Madam Speaker. But in our view, here is the mischief. Here is the mischief. Mr. Vincent Nelson had made a claim upon the state, and it's all here, for £1,500,000 British pounds for the purpose of defending all appeals and included all expenses associated with the representation of the Board of Inland Revenue, the fee on brief, and all other works consequential to defending the appeal. That is what it is. And so we are talking about 10 million TT, significant sum by any judgment, one's imagination. We are further informed, and it's all here, in the public record, that the claimant had been paid on 3 invoices in the sum of £150,000, each leaving a balance, therefore leaving a balance of £1 million.
I've given you some breath, but unless you could quickly show what this has to do with what we're debating, I'd ask you to move on. So quickly.
I will show why we have our concerns. Yeah. And it's important to have to give the facts so that the population can judge our position. In doing so, I'll just say that this is John Milton's idea. Let ideas contend in the marketplace of ideas, and the population could be trusted to know whether I'm talking something that is unfair. If I'm not allowed to state a position, the judgment they will make will be deficient by my input, by our input. So, Madam Speaker, we are further told that the Attorney General informed the claimant that the ministry was short of funds and there would be a delay in payment. And I'll quickly wind up. We are further informed that the AG agreed to meet the claimant to discuss the terms.
In the judgment you're referring to?
Yes. I'm quoting.
All right.
I am quoting. We are further, Madam, I'm quoting. We are further informed from the judgment. We are further informed, and I quote, that the AG informed the claimant, quote, that the ministry was short of funds and there would be a delay in payment. We are further informed that the AG agreed to meet the claimant to discuss payment of the balance. All this time, the claimant was advised by Mr. Roger Kewal Singh. You see, we know what we are talking about. You may disagree with our view, but we have a view that is responsible, considered, and well thought out.
The debate, I have no view. My only view is what is guided by the standing orders. I have no view. Okay? So I have no view.
All this time, Madam Speaker, the claimant was advised by Mr. Roger Kewal Singh. So discussions were held with Mr. Nelson, advised by Mr. Kewal Singh, and all of a sudden, this QC, who was suing the state for 10 million, withdraws his claim for that considerable sum, Madam Speaker. On the advice, we presume, of Mr. Roger Kewal Singh. So,
Raising standing order 49, please.
These are still live proceedings? No.
yes, they are. In a different
Just 1 minute, E.G. The matter was raised by Aruka Maloney. Are these still live proceedings?
Criminal proceedings.
Madam Speaker, my understanding is that this matter is part of the subject of the ongoing criminal proceedings against Ramdeen and Ram Logan.
When it is withdrawn, it can be kicked back, and there is a plea agreement.
Okay, so that if the point of sub judice has been raised, remember, we understand how that rule works, I will not allow it.
Which judge are you going to?
So, Madam Speaker, our concern is that there is a nexus. And we're not casting aspersions. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, but we're saying there's reason for a pause, for us to consider whether the framers of the Constitution and the arm's length relationship with the executive is being preserved. That is a legitimate question that any hard, honest citizen of Trinidad and Tobago will be concerned
Order
with.
48-6, please.
Member for Naparima, I'll allow you to go on.
This is not what the charge is.
As we said, Madam Speaker, we on this side are significantly concerned because we are approaching an election, and we are concerned that the government on the other side does not have any performance record to stand on. And therefore, as you get desperate, we have to look with a cocky eye on anything that is done. Madam Speaker,
Member for member for Maruga Tableland and member for Couva South. I realize that you all, continuously have a conversation, but listen to me, I'm standing, okay? Please, if you all need to have a conversation across the floor, I'll invite you all to go out, all right? But I will not allow this. Member for
Madam Speaker, you see, our job is to be concerned. Our job is to look under the woodwork and to see what could be manifest in the decisions that are being made. And that's the only job. We're concerned also, Madam Speaker, because just last week, the Prime Minister said in the debate in the media review, he talked about investigating all lawyers' fees between 2010 and 2015. That was stated in the records. And Madam Speaker, I refer to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, dated Friday, October 26, 2012, right? 2012, in which, and I will quote, it says, Yvonne Babulal, she says, Jamaican lawyer Vincent Nelson, Queen's Counsel, will be arriving in Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow.
Speaker, Standing Order 49, please.
I will, in terms of my original ruling, in terms of the sub judice, if this is at all related to the ongoing, I will not allow it. So I'll give you a little room to see where this is going, but please be guided by Standing Order 49.
Madam Speaker, what are they frightened about? Why are you so nervous and panicky? All we're doing is asking questions to which we're entitled. Madam Speaker, it has nothing to do with the instant case. Sometime I have to teach them a little law. I'm reading. I have to teach them. Madam Speaker, Jamaican lawyer, I'm quoting from The Guardian, Vincent Nelson, Queen's Counsel, will arrive in Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow. Nelson is the newly appointed lead counsel in the Ministry of Finance's legal team at the CLICO HCU. Nothing absolutely to do with this case, and therefore sub judice does not apply. I'll teach you the law. At the Commission of Inquiry, along with Jagdeo Singh and Roger Kewal Singh, he replaced fired attorneys, fired Hussein Senior Counsel and Michael Kwamina. It means, Madam Speaker, if we have to take the Prime Minister at his word, that Mr. Kewal Singh is under investigation because he has been in receipt of fees in the same fees that the Prime Minister referred to. We have to bring these things
Madam
up.
Speaker, Standing Order 41, Standing Order 48-1, Standing Order 49, Standing Order 48-6.
One for common sense.
Okay, so that, member for Naparima, again, you made it in the context of what the Prime Minister said in terms of subject to. I am not, though, going to allow this, if it at all has anything with matters that are being before the court. Okay?
Madam Speaker, 48, I'm sorry, Standing Order 1.
Member, in terms of Standing Order 1, which is one of your favorite standing orders. Yes, I understand. I understand. But I member for Barataria, San Juan, I have ruled on Standing Order 49.
Madam Speaker, so the question I have directly to the Prime Minister, straight question, and is Mr. Roger Kewal Singh under investigation because at all? I'll give you a way to tell. I'll give you a way. And if you can't answer, it is because in the context of what you have said, he must be one of the many lawyers that are being reviewed by your government. So, Madam Speaker, we have to pause for a cause. The inconsistencies, the inability to answer a question, the constant, standing order, like they don't want us to talk our view and let the population decide. Madam Speaker, I am not casting any aspersions on the President, for whom I have utmost respect. No, I need to say it. Utmost respect. But the agenda of this House is not set by Her Excellency. It is set by this incompetent government that we have sitting next door, that is taking Trinidad and Tobago down the road to Haitianization. Madam Speaker, why are we not discussing? Why are we not discussing? And we are on this side. Because we are concerned, and Madam Speaker, particularly with my good self. I am 70 years old. I do not have much time. The allotted time on this earth has been given to me. So the remaining time has to be used wisely. And therefore, when you call me to Parliament, it must be to do the nation's important business. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the question I ask is, since they set the agenda, and this came up, and I say, again, nothing to do, Her Excellency is doing her work efficiently. It is this government not doing its work at all. So why are we not discussing a refugee policy based on international best practices that is humane and recognizes the limits of our absorptive capacity?
Member, that is not what we're discussing. Okay, what we're discussing is the notification of Her Excellency on the appointment of a specific person. Please limit your contribution to that.
Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, the question is that we on this side, been called upon today to support something which we do not believe, or which we do not support. Madam Speaker, and that is clear. The question is, could we get an opportunity to state the diverse reasons why we do not support this, Mr. Kewal Singh, the nomination? And one of the reasons why we do not support it is because we are of the view, and I will be stopped, but I will say it. We have the view that the shortcomings in the prison service deserve our immediate attention, with 8 prisoners and the escape.
I guess the statement you made shows a certain degree of impunity. So I stand again and say I'm not going to allow that. You're allowed to proceed once you abide by my ruling. The fact that you said that you know you'll be stopped means that it is deliberate. Member for Naparima, I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Right.
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Very good.
So, Madam Speaker, we would have preferred that in the light of the information provided the additional information provided, that we would have been able to pause for cause and to review this nomination. We are also advised, and I want to ask the question. We are also advised that Mr. Kewal Singh enjoys a very close relationship with the Attorney General. And I'm asking the question, do you all share a close relationship such that we on this side would have a concern that there may be not an arm's-length relationship between the executive and the Police Service Commission? And I ask the question, and I give you a minute to answer. Do you have a close relationship with the person in question? So we move on, Madam Speaker. Mr. Kewal Singh was formerly a member of the law firm Hobson's. I think the Prime Minister referred to it, right? And we understand that we are asking if what were the circumstances in which he left the firm of Hobson's, the specific circumstances. You see, we have to be absolutely clear. The Prime Minister says there are no persons and how it is difficult to get people to come in. There are a number of people, a number of citizens who want to nominate themselves and to serve the country. But, Madam Speaker, they want to ensure, once the thing is clear, once the thing is clean and the process is transparent, absolutely transparent, they do not have a problem, Madam Speaker. So that we are just asking some questions and giving our concerns. So, Madam Speaker, it brings no joy to object to any person. But our duty, our major responsibility, is to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that everyone who attains to high office, who achieves high office in Trinidad and Tobago, must stand proper scrutiny. There is nothing wrong with scrutiny, Madam Speaker. If what we are saying is not true, the government has an opportunity to rebut our point, our concerns about the case, our concerns about whether he's been investigated, our concerns about Hobson, and they're supposed to bring it to our attention. Our only concern in this time is that given all the threats that are circulating around in our society, that whatever happens, it will be consistent with the rule of law and consistent with the best practices available globally, internationally, and locally. Nothing else. And we will do so without fear or favor, Madam Speaker. Without fear or favor. Despite ridicule and despite any kind of statement. So long as our conscience, we are clear, absolutely clear, that we are serving the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who demand the best. So, Madam Speaker, I have given my views. We will not support this nomination, and we leave it to the government to refute the concerns which we have expressed. And with those views, I take my seat. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I have been in this place, I have to admit, for decades. And I must say, I am coming to the conclusion that the current couple of my colleagues have taken a turn in the road somewhere. They have taken a fork in the road that causes me to think, Madam Speaker, that it is not only the spinning of a wheel, that makes no sense and make one look entirely foolish. But it could also make you dangerous. Madam Speaker, this matter before the House today is simple and straightforward. But I wish I could say that I am surprised at the presentation and the behavior of the member for Naparima, advised and egged on by his leader, the member for Siparia. What has caused you, Madam Speaker, to rise so often and my colleague to interject so often under the standing orders is to have prevented the member for Naparima from coming into the Parliament with some totally unfounded conspiracy theory meant to undermine the state's prosecution of 2 members of the UNC who are engaged in the court charge for criminal conduct.
Rule on all 3.
Madam Speaker, I trust that you will understand that using my own brain cells, I have come to the conclusion that what the member for Naparima tried to do today, which was truncated by the standing orders, is to put on the Hansard a defense for people who are charged before the criminal court. And the Parliament will have none of it.
Madam Speaker, 48-6, and that is 48-6.
Overruled.
Madam Speaker, I kept my silence while Naparima spun his wheel and his tail. I seek your protection to put on the Hansard undisturbed the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I draw your attention to the country's constitution, Section 122, the Police Service Commission. And for the benefit of any citizen who might have heard the fulminations of Naparima, who started his presentation with the amazing concern, because they always have concerns, his amazing concern about the urgency of dealing with this matter. And then he descended into the folly of seeking to make a case that the Police Service Commission has 4 members, and why does the President and the House need to put a 5th member on the Police Service Commission? In other words, we have enough members on the Police Service Commission. So who are these people, President or government, wanting to add a 5th? And because that is happening, it is indication or proof of some conspiracy against his colleagues who are in front of the criminal court. Madam Speaker, this is an insult to the presidency and to the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And what is worse, Madam Speaker, is that if he was acting on his own, one could have said it is normal folly. But he was being prepared and presented and egged on by a former Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition in Siparia. Listen to the next thing. Madam Speaker, let me read for you why we are doing this. Let me read for the population why we are doing this. Our Constitution says under 122, there shall be a Police Service Commission for Trinidad and Tobago which shall consist of a chairman and 4 other members. Madam Speaker, it does not say if you have 4 members that sentence is now null and void. He made the case, Naparima made the case that you have 4 members on the commission. So why are you coming here to waste Parliament's time? Why aren't you talking about water and talking about escaped criminals and the crash helicopter? Why are you doing it? And your answer is very simple. Section 122 of the Constitution says that you shall have a chairman on 4, and a chairman on 4 is 5. So your argument about having 4 is a nonsense. Madam Speaker, and it makes you wonder, why would any sane and sober parliamentarian come here and make an issue that we are trying to have 5 members on the commission as against being content with 4? Madam Speaker, what is that? It was simply to be able to make a case that there is some kind of conspiracy with the appointment of Mr. Kewal Singh. I want to draw to your attention, Madam Speaker, for what is worth. Because apparently that was then and now. Mr. Kewal Singh was a person who worked in chamber with the leader of the opposition.
On the CV, black and white, look at them.
That is before the parliament. None of them worked in chamber. But of course, in spinning his tail this evening, he tried to deal with that. He said that something has happened since the leader of the opposition would have been consulted by the president on her intention to nominate Mr. Kewal Singh. Up until then, he was okay. He was good to work in chambers with her. He remains Hobson's main advocate. That was okay.
Up to today.
When the president consulted, my advice is that my colleague from Superior was very happy. And she gushed. Finally, one of us should be on the commission.
They call him to say that.
It was okay then. But something happened since then to have caused this reversal of position, Madam Speaker. And I dare say, in my own analysis, the only thing that has happened since then is that Kewal Singh is Vincent Nelson's lawyer. And somehow, this lawyer, who is the advocate for Mr. Nelson, and Nelson has turned state witness, and Ram Logan and his colleagues have been appointed, and that is the whole matter before us today. That is what, that has happened.
That's it.
That is what has changed the whole weather, the whole climate. Come out and say that. Madam Speaker, he put to me directly a question which I did not answer, which I will answer now. He put to me, and the reason...
The honourable member.
Let me drink some water, Madam Speaker, before I choke on that. The honourable member, in his spinning of his tail, put to me whether I am aware that Kewal Singh is under investigation. Madam Speaker, what I said is that Her Excellency would have done, as we expect her to do, her thorough investigation of Mr. Kewal Singh. And I know of no situation where Mr. Kewal Singh is under any investigative process. And not for any criminal matter, and certainly not as he will try to imply that there's a basket of lawyers and he's part of the basket. I'm not aware of that, Madam Speaker. If he's aware of that, he should have said so. He had 45 minutes. He had 45 minutes to tell us where Kewal Singh was under investigation and for what reason. He didn't do that. He put a question to me. Madam Speaker, the level of nastiness that seems to be the hallmark and it's a standard, Madam Speaker, that we must assume. We must not encourage that standard, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have seen it before in this country, where a person of high quality has taken a position of integrity, a position that the country should be happy that individuals have taken that position. And what was the result for doing that? Fired from the cabinet for not agreeing to lie. Madam Speaker, Mr. Kewal Singh, as far as we are aware, a person whose integrity is beyond reproach. So much so, among his peers in the Law Association, he's a member of the disciplinary committee. But the minute a criminal matter comes out of the political management of the company and goes to the court, and he is the advocate and has been so for this person, all of a sudden, Kewal Singh bad. Yeah, I'm advised. Apparently, his crime is because he's a clean, decent person. And let me tell you why I believe, Madam Speaker, that that assertion is true. Because the member for Naparima went on to say that every person who aspires to or attains high office in this country, and I want to quote him, everyone who achieves high office must be able to stand scrutiny. Madam Speaker, who could argue with that? Who could argue with that? But only last week, or is it this week, the same leader who is egging him on to make this quotation, everyone who achieves high office must be able to stand scrutiny, unless, of course, you are to be a UNC senator. Who have questions to answer. Madam Speaker, right, it was, where was I standing? No, I was over there as a government backbencher, over there. I was over there as a government backbencher, using my time in the parliament to make the case for Karani workers who had lost all their money in Hindu Credit Union. And at the, it was in the Clico bailout.
One, please.
It was in,
Please proceed.
it was in the Clico bailout debate, speaking as a government backbencher and saying, it's on Hansard, that as we bail out Clico, we will have to also bail out the Hindu Credit Union members. And to see one of the major players of the Hindu Credit Union calamity, who failed to turn up before a commission of inquiry, is now appointed to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago by the leader of the opposition. And the very same week, you pick up Naparima's voice in the Parliament telling the country on Hansard that if you achieve office, high office as a senator in this country, high office must be able to stand scrutiny. I trust that that appointment, that offensive appointment, will subject itself to the standard set by Naparima. I trust.
48-6 on the senator, please. He's imputing.
Member for Point of Air, standing order raising.
48-6. The Prime Minister is imputing improper motives on a senator.
Please continue, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, for the benefit of the public, I will continue to read Section 122 so that members of the national community can protect themselves from the nastiness that is put on the parliamentary record today. All with a purpose, which, Madam Speaker, we should all hope fails. Subsection 2 of the Police Service Commission Act. The members of the Police Service Commission shall be appointed by the President in accordance with this section. Subsection 3. The President shall, after consultation with the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition, nominate persons who are qualified in the disciplines that I have outlined. And 4, Madam Speaker, the President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated for appointment under subsection 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of this House. Madam Speaker, subsection 4 calls us to this House to treat with that notification of Her Excellency the President, nothing else. We are here in compliance with the dictate of our Constitution. Madam Speaker, the President shall make an appointment under this section only after the House has approved the notification in respect of the relevant person. Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. The President shall issue the notification, section 5, the President shall make an appointment under this section only after the House has approved the notification in respect of the relevant person. So, Madam Speaker, the President having indicated her intention to make an appointment to fill a vacancy on the board of the Police Service Commission can only do so if we do what the Constitution says, which is to, by affirmative action, accept her nomination. Madam Speaker, we are invited by the opposition to not do that because they don't understand the urgency. Madam Speaker, this matter came to this House on the 23rd of April. We're dealing with it. What's today's date?
17th of May.
On the 17th of May. A matter which was laid here on the 23rd of April, where an intention of the President to fill a vacancy on a service commission as important as the Police Service Commission. We dealt with other business of the House on numerous occasions, and today we set aside time to deal with it so that Her Excellency could make the appointment. And I have to sit here and listen to the fulminations and fabrications of a colleague from Naparima asking us about what is the urgency. What is the urgency? What urgency, Madam Speaker? To use the term urgency on this matter is mischievous. I noticed he said that he swore an oath to act without fear or favor. So he's favoring no one, he fears no one, but he has not said that he's to act without malice. Didn't say that at all. He was very careful not to quote the rest of the oath, which is written there for a purpose, for people like him, Madam Speaker, to act without malice or ill will. Madam Speaker, today I can say that he who has eyes to see, let him see, and he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Madam Speaker, we have done this House today no favors in presenting it to the people of Trinidad and Tobago as a place where decency always lives. Madam Speaker, those of us on this side have no difficulty in accepting Her Excellency's nomination and complying with the Constitution of clearing the way for her to make an appointment to the Police Service Commission. And appointing to that commission, according to my colleague from Naparima, a person whose only crime, the only thing that disqualifies him is that he is the lawyer of a citizen from another country who decided to come to Trinidad and Tobago to tell the truth and to tell to the state their statement. This is the only thing that disqualifies Mr. Kewal Singh is that he's providing legal advocacy to a person who has turned state witness. Madam Speaker, that should tell the people in this country. Madam Speaker, I would like to speak undisturbed from Naparima. That should tell this country what standards are being set by the UNC in Trinidad and Tobago, and to come into the Parliament and try to impose that standard on our people. If there is anyone that is disqualified from holding high office in this country, it's not Kewal Singh, it's all of them on the UNC. I beg to move.
Honorable members, the question is, be it resolved that the notification of the nomination of Mr. Roger Mark Kewal Singh as a member of the Police Service Commission be approved. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against?
Mrs. Robinson Regis.
Aye.
Dr. Rowley.
Aye.
Mr. Al-Rawi.
Aye.
Mr. Ember.
Yes.
Mr. Hines.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Ms. Kudrow.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mrs. Critchlow Coburn.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Dillon.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster Roy.
Aye.
Dr. Gatsby Dolly,
Aye.
Ms. McDonald,
Yes.
Dr. Francis,
Yes.
Mrs. Jennings Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Antwine,
Yes.
Mr. Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Coffey,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Abstain.
Mrs. Prasad Bisasa,
Abstain.
Mr. Charles,
Abstain.
Dr.
I will caution if the vote be taken in silence, and I would advise members to cast no remark on the votes. Continue.
Dr. Ramachan,
Abstain.
Mr. Karen,
Abstain.
Dr. Tiwari,
Abstain.
Mr. Indar Singh,
Abstain.
Dr. Khan,
Abstain.
Mr. Pari,
Abstain.
Ms. Ramdial,
Abstain.
Mr. Singh,
Abstain.
Madam Speaker, the results of the division is as follows: 21 members voting for, 0 members voting against, and 11 abstentions.
Honorable members, on a division, 21 members voted for, no members voted against, 11 members abstained. The motion is carried.
Bill, second reading.
Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011, Act number 20 of 2011, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to come to perfect a critical piece of law designed to take our country out of the lurch of criminality, corruption, malfeasance, and turpitude. These things resonate, Madam Speaker, in the environment of a criminal justice system which has not been allowed to work at the pace at which other Commonwealth jurisdictions and even civil law jurisdictions have managed to prosper. For 26 years, Madam Speaker, government after government engaged in an exercise of perfection by way of pursuit for a legislative tool that could work to quicken the criminal justice system. Preliminary inquiries, Madam Speaker, is a phenomenon of law birthed in or around the year 1555 in the Marian Statutes, taken through the colonial period, certainly coming forward in 1836 at the Prisoners' Council Act, 1848 the Indictable Offences Act, the Sir John Jervay Act, going through the inquisitorial approach, getting to the methodology where then, in a society where few people were literate, in a society where murder and mayhem prevailed, in a society where there was no form of literacy matched with technology, there was a purpose designed to filter out cases, and that was called preliminary inquiries. Preliminary inquiries constructed a bifurcated purpose to say, allow someone who is charged with a serious offense, otherwise referred to as an indictable offense, the opportunity to know what the charge is, and then secondly, the opportunity to test or probe the strength of the evidence as to whether a case ought to be allowed to continue or not. In a society such as Trinidad and Tobago, preliminary inquiries statistically in the courts of Trinidad and Tobago find a number which is beyond belief. For the period of nearly the several years coming to July 31st, 2018, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, that preliminary inquiries number as at July 2018, 43,109 at the Magistrates Court level. In that pack, there are statistical points of reference which are material for consideration. In that 43,000 pot of preliminary inquiry matters, there are 151 of them which are over 14 years in age. There are 140 of them that are between 13 to 14 years, 120 between 12 to 13, 141 between 11 to 12, 267 between 10 to 11 years in antiquity, 9 to 10 years, 254, 8 to 9 years, 398, 7 to 8 years, 1,071, just to give a few. In Trinidad and Tobago, therefore, we have witnesses, judicial officers, prosecutors, virtual complainants, policemen, prisons, transportation, probation officers, doctors, medical personnel in the ancillary support services, all of them turning up for over 10 years successively to find out if a case is going to happen by way of reference from the Magistrates Court to the High Court. You see, that is what the Act in 1917, the Preliminary Inquiries Parent Act, caused. Under the Preliminary Inquiries legislation, and that is the 1917 Act, now 102 years old, we are chained to a system of asking the Magistrates Court to filter out cases, allow for witnesses to be examined and cross-examined, such that a magistrate will then decide whether there is enough evidence, sufficient evidence, to then say, go and have your trial in the High Court, referred to as the Assizes. That's the data in our country. That's what we're treating with in our country. How has that exercise of reform gone? In the period 1917 straight to date, we've had a number of amendments coming to the law. Certainly, Madam Speaker, in the period 2010 to 2015, then coming to 2017, firstly, under the UNC government, we had the Preliminary Inquiries, Administration of Justice, Preliminary Inquiries legislation. This is this Act, number 20 of 2011, happen. We then saw the proclamation of that law in what is the greatest scandal of the history of Trinidad and Tobago, where Section 34 of this law to cause consequences of the removal of cases from system happened in our country. We saw that scandal happen in 2012. We saw the repeal of Section 34 happen. And then we went in 2014 to throw away that purpose and to then add on to that a different model of committal proceedings. And Madam Speaker, that then left us in 2015 with 3 laws to treat with preliminary inquiries and how we're going to treat with that. 1, the 1917 law, 2, the 2011 law, 3, the 2014 law. We came into government, we took the approach of enlarging the capacity of the DPP's constitutional power, providing for the procedural methodology of that, under an expansive approach to Section 90 of the Constitution by saying, let the office of the DPP decide whether a matter should go straight to the High Court by way of indictment or be treated with as a summary matter in the Magistrates Court. We went through a robust series of discussions. We had consultation, we retained attorneys at law, and in fact, we then prepared a significant amount of amendment to the law which we brought in 2017, which we were prepared to operationalize until it is that we went back to what is the quickest and easiest fit for operationalization. It was at that point that in consultation with the judiciary, the DPP's office, and the Law Association, we took notice of the fact that Act number 20 of 2011, the Administration of Justice Preliminary Inquiries Act, that particular act could have been operationalized provided three things were done. One, the introduction of criminal proceedings rules, which we as a government put into effect in April 2016. Two, by the creation of the posts of criminal masters, which we as a government put into operation, firstly under the Family and Children Division legislation, and secondly under the Criminal Division and Traffic Courts, if I abbreviate the name of the bill, now Act of Parliament, where we created the concept of masters of court who are called criminal masters. And the third aspect was to ensure that the capacity for judicial enlargement would happen. And we are very pleased in the miscellaneous provisions legislation which we have passed in 2 successive rounds of law that we have increased the numerical capacity of the judiciary by 77%, moving High Court judges from a capped number of 36 straight up to 64, and moving appellate capacity from 12 Court of Appeal judges to 15 Court of Appeal judges. So having undertaken criminal proceedings rules, masters of court, and judicial capacity, and improvement of aspects of the running of the system, we were able instead to take the 2017 work which we developed and which we sought to fine-tune in 2018 and pour it in to a consideration of an amendment and retooling of Act number 20 of 2011. We came to this Parliament, Madam Speaker, and just recently, this year, we then took the improvements to what was passed in 2011. We laid the legislation on the 9th of November 2018. That was the first reading. We then took the second reading in this House on the 11th of January 2019. We saw the Senate engage on the 15th of January 2019. And then on the 29th of January 2019, we perfected the Senate's debate. We came back to the House this year on the 30th of January 2019. We did the Senate amendments on the 1st of February 2019, and we assented to the amendments which we caused to the 2011 law on the 13th of February 2019. Madam Speaker, in an attempt to cause the operationalization of law by way of proclamation of this law to abolish preliminary inquiries, we did what this government always does. We went back to the stakeholders, we went back to the judiciary, we went back to other stakeholders, and we said, do you have any objections to this law as amended by this government being proclaimed? It was at that point that we received stakeholder feedback, and we had some very simple recommendations which the government agreed ought to be put into the parent law by way of amendments. And today we come with this bill, this short 11-clause bill, the content of which I will explain shortly, because upon passage of these amendments, should this House so desire, we will move swiftly to the full proclamation of Act number 20 of 2011, that famous Section 34 parent law, by way of a full proclamation, not an obscene, illogical proclamation of one self-serving clause that Section 34 was, but instead by a proclamation of the entire law to cause the abolition of preliminary inquiries. So let's get to what this bill proposes. Madam Speaker, we received submissions which asked us to fine-tune a few basic concepts. The first concept that we were asked to look at really was the definitional concepts used in the legislation. Section 3 of the law treats with the definition of an accused. An accused was defined, and Clause 4 treats with Section 3 by way of proposed amendment. Clause 3 asks us to amend the definition of accused to add the definition of accused, the concept of a person who is charged with an indictable offense, or a person against whom a complaint is made. What became apparent by way of the submissions coming in preparation for proclamation was that persons may find themselves before a master under the Administration of Justice Act, number 20 of 2011, or a magistrate in two capacities as the law contemplated, either by virtue of a summons or warrant, but the law inadvertently left out the particular circumstance where you may find yourself before the court by simply having been arrested and brought to court. In other words then, without a warrant or without a summons. Therefore, in Clause 3 of the bill, we propose an amendment of the definition of the accused to say that it shall include a person who is charged with an indictable offense, because upon coming to the court by way of arrest without summons or without warrant, you are now the person charged with an indictable offense. Madam Speaker, if we go to Clause 4 of the bill, we're proposing an amendment to Section 4 of the Act. Section 4 of the Act is the application of the Act. And in Section 4 of the Act, we say that the Act shall apply to proceedings which are instituted on or after the coming into force of the Act, but we very specifically treat with the circumstance of the Act applying to proceedings commenced prior to the proclamation of this Act. Why? Because, as I've put onto the record, 43,000 indictable cases are standing at the magistracy as at the 2018 date. In that context of 43,000 cases, where we have indicated that there are hundreds of cases coming on to the thousands for cases over 10 years, some as old as over 14 years, where witnesses, where complainants, where accused and judicial officers need to have some form of justice speak by way of acquittal or by way of charge leading to conviction. In those circumstances, we have applied this law to treat with the matters that are currently in the system. And what we have said, Madam Speaker, by way of Clause 4, is that we propose an amendment to Section 4.2. In Section 4.2, we are saying that subject to subsection 3, which we propose be added in, that if you have matters treating with existing preliminary inquiries, then the prosecutor or the accused, either party, may elect to have the case determined in accordance with this Act. In other words, then, either the prosecutor or the accused can say, let's skip the preliminary inquiry. Let's skip 14 years of waiting. Let's skip spending hundreds of thousands, or in some people's cases, millions of dollars on preliminary inquiries, and let's go directly to the assizes, to the High Court, to see whether there's an acquittal or a conviction. What we do, Madam Speaker, by adding in the amendments to subsection 2, is we treat with, first of all, a reference to a new Clause 32A, which we introduced by Clause 11. A new Section 32A, permit me. That Section 32A basically is the process by which Clause 11 recommends that you come before the court. Either you are before the magistrate or you are before the master. Either you are brought on summons, you are brought on warrant, you are brought by way of arrest, or you are brought to the court by the DPP saying, let's go directly, skip past a sufficiency hearing, and let's go directly to the High Court. In any one of those circumstances, we thought it prudent, by way of Clause 11, to introduce a new Section 32A, which says how you will come to the court. And that is prescribed in the manner that Clause 11 sets out, and I'll come to that in a while. But on Clause 4, which treats with the amendment to Section 4, we're saying in the latter part of the amendments that it is necessary to clarify the circumstance where you may have multiple accused and multiple accused who may also have multiple charges. And therefore, when you're dealing with a joint trial, multiple accused, or you're dealing with multiple charges, we needed to harmonize what would happen prescriptively where some of the accused didn't want to go for preliminary inquiry, skip going straight to the High Court. Some would have fared their chances better under the old system. Some wanted the new system. Or the circumstance where the prosecutor says, look, I'm going to proceed with this one with no preliminary inquiry, but another one in a different way. It was necessary to move out of the realm of speculation and instead to provide prescription, and therefore by causing an amendment to Section 4 of the Act, by way of Clause 4, we're inserting a new subsection 3, which essentially says that subsection 2, i.e. skipping past the preliminary inquiry of existing matters, shall not apply in the case of a joint trial unless prosecutor elects in respect of all of the accused, i.e. if you're taking one, take all, or all of the accused elect under subsection 2, meaning all of the accused, if they themselves want to say to the prosecutor, we don't want a preliminary inquiry, we want to skip 14 years of wait, we want to go, well then all of you must go. We also provide for the circumstance where 2 or more charges are to be tried together. We say that the prosecutor must elect the same methodology in respect of all of the charges, and therefore similarly the counterpart of that is that we ask the accused to do the same thing. Madam Speaker, we then turn to the provisions of Clause 5. Clause 5 proposes an amendment to Section 6 of the Act. In Section 6, we are causing a clarification. Under the Act as assented to by this government, we took an amendment which is to be found at Section 27 of this law. At Section 27 of this law, we had provided for the circumstances where the Director of Public Prosecutions had the option to prefer an indictment, skip past a preliminary inquiry if it was an existing one, or skip past a sufficiency hearing under the provisions and parts of this law, and automatically go for a trial at the High Court in very tailored circumstances. Firstly, the close of an inquest in a coroner's matter, where the coroner had an opinion that that should happen. Secondly, where a co-accused is arrested before arraignment, and the accused has already been, another accused has been, who's a co-accused in the dance already. Where the accused is charged with an offense involving serious or complex fraud, where a magistrate or a master in the course of a preliminary inquiry or a sufficiency hearing was physically or mentally infirm, resigns, retires, there was death or any other inability, and I'll call that the Marcia Ayres Caesar circumstance, i.e. where people run a trial just by way of delay and wait for the resignation or retirement, or circumstances which are tantamount to the same situation, where you can now say in those circumstances which were not provided for in Section 23(8) of the 1917 law, in those circumstances the DPP can have the power to skip past the preliminary inquiry or sufficiency hearing and go straight to the indictment. But as that law was located in Section 37, that law found itself proposing, quite unfortunately, that the DPP may have the power to ask for a sufficiency hearing in those circumstances. We therefore thought it more prudent to remove that terminology, the exact wording, adjust it, adjust the chapeau but keep the exact wording of the rest, transpose it to Section 6, where we have Clause 5 causing the amendment. And in Clause 5 now, in Section 6 as it's proposed to be amended, we are saying that where a complaint in writing, the DPP may, without prejudice to the generality, send these same matters, coroner, complex fraud, circumstance of judge retiring or any other cause, etc., directly to indictment. And therefore, we make it clear now that there shall be, let me repeat, there shall be no sufficiency hearing. Now, Madam Speaker, this allows for very important relief for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This country is dealing at present under this government with matters of serious and complex fraud of a type and caliber that has not been seen in this country. And this government, therefore, proposes by this amendment from Clause 5 to amend Section 6 to give the people and the taxpayers of this country a fighting chance to allow justice to go to work. A fighting chance to allow the DPP the privilege, which he has under Section 90 of the Constitution anyway, the privilege of skipping past the utilization of close to billions of dollars of tax-paying dollars in preliminary inquiries that last 10 to 15 years long, particularly for complex fraud, money laundering, abuse of public office, bribery, and corruption charges. And this, therefore, is of general purport and benefit to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, Clause 6 proposes an amendment to Section 8 of the Act. We are allowing, by way of the insertion of a new subclause 7, for a person who is arrested and charged with an indictable offense to be brought as soon as is practicable before a master, and if that is not possible, before a magistrate. In other words, not only those persons who are brought before the court by summons and by warrant, but anybody who is arrested. That person who is arrested should also be brought immediately to the court in keeping with the concept of due process and rule of law by bringing that person either before a master or before a magistrate so that bail may be considered and the other procedural aspects and enshrined rights can be exercised. Madam Speaker, in Clause 7, we cause an amendment to Section 8A. We are therefore obliged, having amended Section 8 by Clause 6, to put in the cross-referencing to the new subclause 7, that is 8.7, for the same purposes that I just described. That is, persons who are arrested without having come before the court by summons or warrant, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we turn next to the provisions of Clause 8. Clause 8 causes an amendment to Section 19 of the Act. Section 19 falls under Part 3, sufficiency hearings. In Section 19, we are making it abundantly clear by the amendments proposed by Clause 8 that a sufficiency hearing shall be held by a master to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to put the accused on trial for an indictment unless the DPP prefers and files an indictment under 6.2. In other words, then, we're making sure that there is not an abuse of time. We are tying this into the DPP's power under Section 90 of the Constitution and therefore find square proportionality. So we're making Section 19, sufficiency hearings, inapplicable to the circumstances that I've read out as we propose the amendment to Section 6.2 of the parent law. Madam Speaker, I turn next to the provisions of Clause 5. I'm just going to tap back to Clause 5. I want you to note that, of course, we have to amend Section 27 of the Act. We're amending Section 27 of the Act, Madam Speaker, by Clause 9, but I want to refer to Clause 5 as well. Clause 9 causes the amendment to Section 27, where we are removing the cross-references to subsections 2 and 3, only keeping subsection 2. It's in Clause 27, as I said earlier, that we are removing what was at 27.3. Those are the circumstances, the coroner, the magistrate's retirement, complex fraud, etc. We move those back to Section 6 So it is clause 9 that causes that cross-reference and tie into clause 5. But I want to point out, Madam Speaker, section 27(2) has a reference to a Schedule 6. Schedule 6 is what we say you cannot lose your matter for delay on. Let me put this on the record. Except in a case of any matter listed in Schedule 6, where the DPP does not prefer an indictment against the accused within 12 months of making an order to put the accused on trial, the accused may apply to a judge for a discharge. Schedule 6 at present does not have white-collar crimes in it. This government will cause an amendment to Schedule 6 in the manner in which this law provides by way of the subsidiary legislative route. And as we consult upon the inclusion of white-collar crimes, we are going to make sure that the specter of Section 34, that irreverent abuse of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, by throwing out white-collar crimes of national significance in the manner in which it happened in 2012 under our previous government, we are making sure that by the amendment of the Schedule 6, that we will include white-collar crimes to deal with corruption, money laundering, misbehavior in public office, all of those matters, Madam Speaker, complex fraud, those matters under this government's hand will ensure that they cannot be thrown out on the ground of delay. Why? Because it is axiomatic that complex fraud is complex and therefore time-consuming. And whilst we pay heavy compliment to the Commissioner of Police for introducing a prosecutorial unit at arm's length from any executive functionality by taking the Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau, as the TTPS did, by way of this government removing it from the portfolio of the Attorney General, we are ensuring that there will be no get-out-of-jail card a la Section 34 style by not having white-collar crime in Schedule 6. So I note that for the record, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I turn next to Clause 10. Clause 10 causes an amendment to Section 29 of the parent law. We are seeking an amendment to subsection 6. Subsection 6 gave the wrong impression of the Parliament. It said depositions taken in proceedings instituted prior to the coming into force of this Act are permitted to be used at the sufficiency hearing, provided that the conditions in this section are satisfied. We believe that it should be sanitized because we've now said that you may have no sufficiency hearing at all, as Section 6 as amended by Clause 5 says. Therefore, we propose depositions taken, exhibits admitted in proceedings instituted prior to the coming into force of this Act shall be admissible as evidence at the trial of an accused. What does that mean? Complex fraud matters, matters in the system for over 14 years, no need to start afresh. No need to start de novo, of new, as the expression in Latin means. Because now your evidence admitted in those proceedings, those preliminary inquiry proceedings, all 43,000 of them, you don't need to start again because all of that evidence, having been admitted, is transposed to the High Court, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I turn to the last clause, which is Clause 11. Clause 11 asks for the introduction of a new Section 32A. We, of course, cross-reference this in Section 4. We amended Section 4 by virtue of Clause 4. In this new Section 32A, we are providing for the process by which an accused gets before a court. Firstly, subject to Section 4.3, where the prosecutor or accused elects under 4.2 to have the case determined in accordance with this Act. That means you skip past preliminary inquiry. You then see the magistrate shall order that the accused be brought as soon as practicable before a master to be dealt with in accordance with Part 2. We then deal with the situation where a magistrate is involved in the mechanism, and we prescribe the formula for the magistrate causing the appearance of the accused and manner in which the indictable offense ought to be tried by way of reference to the High Court. Then we deal with the process of filing. We ensure that the prescriptive methodology, how the notice is to be filed, where it is to be filed, in this instance the High Court, how it is to be served, who it is to be served upon, and then the copy of the proceedings and relevant matters being caused to be filed in the High Court. We provide for all of these things. Why, Madam Speaker? Because we are intent upon proclaiming the abolition of preliminary inquiries so that Trinidad and Tobago can be satisfied that this government is intent upon implementing the law, not just passing several iterations of paper law. This government is intent that matters that are brought to the court shall be heard, Madam Speaker. And we shall do that by way of increased capacity, by way of rules of court, by way of management procedures of the court, by way of the bodies that we have associated to coordinate that, by way of supplementation of all of these services, because, Madam Speaker, I come back to the submission of Pointe-a-Pierre. Pointe-a-Pierre had a Freudian slip recently in this Parliament. In refusing to support a particular law which this government was treating with, without dealing with the revival in any form or fashion, Pointe-a-Pierre said something that struck a chord in me. He said, we are not supporting, we the UNC, as I understood it, the law being proposed by the government because we finally see the pieces of the puzzle that the Attorney General and the government are putting together. We saw an echo of that today in a different capacity, where there is a morbid sense of fear and panic in the breasts and chests of those opposite. And Madam Speaker, I come back to the Shakespearean wisdom. Thou doth protest too much, Madam Speaker. Methinks that thou doth protest too much. Madam Speaker, the law being of general purport, there is no element of ad hominism. There is no element of targeting, despite the protestations of those opposite elsewhere. And Madam Speaker, what is necessary for people in Trinidad and Tobago to understand is that the party is now over. It is time for justice to have a fighting chance, Madam Speaker. The methodology to cause that to happen, one of the pieces of the puzzle which caused Pointe-a-Pierre panic, is certainly the proclamation of the abolition of preliminary inquiries. This law is legitimate, proportionate, necessary, and long overdue, and I beg to move.
Honorable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011, Act number 20 of 2011, be now read a second time. Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to make a short contribution on a bill entitled the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Amendment number 2 Bill 2019. In the explanatory note, it states the bill seeks to amend the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act 2011, Act number 20 of 2011, hereinafter referred to as the Act, which provides for the abolition of preliminary inquiries and for the holding of initial and sufficiency hearings by a master of the High Court where a person is charged with indictable offenses. Madam Speaker, when the Honorable Attorney General in his presentation indicated that the basis of this piece of legislation is really Act 20 of 2011, that act being the act passed by the People's Partnership Government under Kamala Prasad Bisesa back in 2011. Madam Speaker, he went on to demonize Section 34, but he will recall, the Honorable Attorney General will recall, that we all voted. We all voted for that particular piece of legislation, and that therefore, I want to commend him to the scriptures, when Jesus said, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this. So the cornerstone of this piece of legislation is really that the basis of Act 20 of 2011. Madam Speaker, and we must make the point that when matters were brought to the attention of the then People's Partnership Administration, that the government of the day moved swiftly to act, and as a result, no one escaped under that legislation. So, and it has been part of their campaign. The people spoke on that in 2015. Government is about choices moving forward, not the nostalgia of what the Attorney General speaks of, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we all recognize that the preliminary inquiry process, the removal of that is a laudable move. In fact, when one were to read the Hansard record of 2011, you would see that the PI, preliminary inquiry, was regarded as a nightmare in the justice system of this country. And there was a series of evils associated with the PI, the preliminary inquiry, Madam Speaker. And in fact, when one were to read, demonized as he is, Justice then Volney, Minister of Justice, Justice Volney, will be very clear the clarity with which he presented the evils associated with the PI inquiry, from corruption, bribery, the length associated with it, the sociological impact upon people, poor people, the economic impact upon poor people. All these matters were dealt with, and that therefore it is laudable that the Honorable Attorney General and this administration is continuing that, because this is what government is, a continuum of measures to improve the quality of life of the people. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the Honorable Attorney General indicated, the preliminary inquiry goes back to the days when the criminal justice system was in its infancy. There was no developed system of disclosure, so that the PI functioned as the means whereby the accused person would be informed of the case he or she had to face, and also allow him to prepare for that case. The modern system of disclosure in criminal proceedings has now rendered the common law and the criminal procedures rules have all established the fully functional system of disclosure, so that an accused is entitled to be provided with all the material in possession of the state well before the trial, thereby obviating the necessity for a long drawn-out preliminary inquiry. Madam Speaker, there is case law that speaks to this. In Ferguson and the AG, then Chief Justice de Labastide indicated that the role of a PI is that it is an exercise in disclosure. In Reyes and the AG, Justice Kangaloo, then, as he was, the late Justice Kangaloo, laid down the rules for disclosure in criminal proceedings. In the matter of Hilroy Humphreys and the AG of Antigua Barbuda, 2008 Privy Council decision, Madam Speaker, deals with the issue of fair hearing, and I will come back to that case when we deal with the whole question of Section 4.2, Madam Speaker. In that case, Madam Speaker, I am reading from it. In that case, the appellant, Mr. Humphreys, was charged with indictable offenses at the time when preliminary inquiries were in existence under the law in Antigua and Barbuda. The law was later modified and preliminary inquiries were substituted by committal proceedings similar to that which is being proposed in the bill before this House. It provided that the magistrate would make the decision to put the accused on trial or discharge him entirely on the basis of written witness statements and exhibits submitted by the prosecution, and if he chooses to submit them, by the accused as well. There is no right to cross-examine or call evidence. The new procedure applied to Mr. Humphrey's case. He brought judicial review proceedings and claiming that the abolition of the preliminary inquiry infringed his constitutional rights. Madam Speaker, the Privy Council held the defendants in criminal proceedings do not have a vested right to any particular procedure, and there will generally be nothing unfair in applying whatever procedure is enforced when the case comes to court. So that what we will distinguish later on, Madam Speaker, when we deal with section clause 4.2, the distinction between the case before the Privy Council and the matter before us, Madam Speaker. So that the current legislation already stretches the resources of the DPP, and I will outline as I proceed, Madam Speaker, the role of the magistracy, the issues surrounding the magistracy, the role of the DPP, and the issues surrounding the DPP. And to demonstrate, Madam Speaker, that when you listen to the Honorable Attorney General, it appears that there's a disease associated with this government, that they deny reality and they look at things through rose-tinted lens, Madam Speaker. Because if you listen to him, all is hunky-dory. Madam Speaker, when you look at what is happening in the magistracy, Madam Speaker, so the AG tells us the government side of the story. But let me tell you the people's side of the story, Madam Speaker. So that therefore I want to start with one of the Honorable Attorney General's favorite topic, the magistracy. 149,000 cases before the magistracy. You have a series of preliminary inquiries. How many thousands? 10 to 15 years. That whole period. We are not denying the data. We are not denying the data. But the Honorable Attorney General must tell us, with the last 4 years of this administration, how many cases have been removed from the magistrate court as a result of the legislative action that he has taken. He must tell us that. So that the reality, Madam Speaker, absolutely not one case has been impacted upon by the legislation that the Attorney General has moved over the last 4 years. And the Attorney General likes to speak about this whole of government approach. You know, whole of government approach. I think the member for Dabadi, Omira, likes that approach too. Whole of government. When my colleague is smiling, the member for Minister, a member for Point Fortin, loves this whole of government approach. But when I looked at the Express newspaper yesterday, I saw a screaming headline, "Fight over water," between two ministers of government. So the whole of government approach, spelled with a W, became a whole of government, a whole in the government approach, spelled with a H. So the backlog, Madam Speaker, has not seen, the backlog in the magistrate court has not seen any improvement. And we will hear that the judiciary will sing the same tune year in, year out. We'll hear them singing, "It's coming, it's coming," but it will never reach. They will continue singing, "It's coming, it's coming." But what they don't realize, whilst they are singing, the population is singing another tune, that they are going, and they're going very soon. Madam Speaker, the government has come with this piece of legislation today that they tell us will clear the backlog in the magistracy and will improve the administration of justice. I wonder if the Honorable Attorney General does not think that the people of Princestown, who have not had a magistrate court in their magisterial district since the earthquake of last year do not have an urgent need for a court. And that should be addressed before the passage of this legislation. Can you, Madam Speaker, imagine what it is like for a lady? Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, for the poor people who have to wake up in the morning and travel to Rio Claro to access the court? That is single mothers, victims of domestic violence, victims and witnesses of crime must travel to Rio Claro to get justice. But you see, Madam Speaker, this is not a priority for this government because there is no court in that area. They could remain without a court. They are not important. The rural communities. So that there's an element of rural neglect by the government in dealing with this matter. Madam Speaker, you know what is the most ironic thing about the situation with the Princestown Magistrate Court, or the lack of a Princestown Magistrate Court? It is that the court that the residents of Princestown have to go to is in Rio Claro is structurally worse than the court in Princestown that was damaged by the earthquake. And they are aware of that. So soon, Madam Speaker, the Rio Claro court will also be condemned, and the residents of Princestown and Rio Claro will have to go to Mayaro. You understand what you have to traverse? You understand the situation? So when you come here with your rose-tinted lenses as the government, an affliction of the government, to tell us all is well, it is clear that all is not well in these communities. Madam Speaker, let me come closer to the area. So that is Rio Claro, Princestown, Mayaro. What about San Fernando? What about, this is within, I think, the AG's constituency. In the constituency of San Fernando West, where the Attorney General is the representative, there has not been a proper functioning magistrate court for the past 3 years. What you have operating, Madam Speaker, is a junior sec magistrate court. Exactly, you have a shift system in place. And even in the educational sector, long ago, the shift system was removed. But in the judicial sector, which is an anchor of this society, you have a shift system operating. My colleague, the member for Arupuch West, will attest to that fact, Madam Speaker. There is, in this shift system, Madam Speaker, there's one set of magistrates working morning shift, and there's another set of magistrates working the evening shift. The magistrates are occupying space in the High Court and taking up space that could properly be used for clearing the backlog in the High Court. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to commend the hardworking magistrates and court staff who go diligently to work every day in very trying conditions for the sake of delivering justice as best as they can in the unhealthy, unspeakable, oppressive conditions that they are subjected to by this government. Madam Speaker, so these are practical realities. It has nothing to do with legislation. So you find your comfort zone in legislation, that there's a comfort zone in legislation that you provide, and we are not faulting that. What we are looking at is that you do not need more legislation to improve the criminal justice system. What we need to do is to resource the magistracy, provide the court staff with the resources they need to turn the wheels of justice, modernize the system of justice, provide suitable working conditions and proper terms of employment, and the wheels of justice will turn at a surprisingly quicker pace. you know, Madam Speaker, and I will come later on, as they seek to now deal with the human resource issue in the judiciary. I will talk about that also. Because you see, the legislation is the panacea for all the maladies affecting the judiciary in the eyes, the rose-tinted lens of the government, and in particular, the Honorable Attorney General. Madam Speaker, you see, the government has had at its disposal over the last 4 years over $200 billion. And with spending that quantum of money, they have not improved the justice system in Trinidad and Tobago. So, Madam Speaker, I now turn to the DPP and the office of the DPP, because clause 9, clauses 6, 9, and 32 of this bill, it is the DPP decision to activate those clauses. Madam Speaker, what is the state of the office of the DPP? Let me tell you, Madam Speaker, the state of the most important office that has exclusive constitutional responsibility for the prosecution of criminal offenses in our country. It is indeed a shame. At present, the DPP is squatting for an office in Port of Spain and San Fernando. For the past 3 years, we are told that the DPP is supposed to take up residence in the Gulf City Mall in San Fernando. The office of the DPP has already taken up residence at the Gulf City Mall in Lowlands, Tobago. I understand, Madam Speaker, that another shopping mall in Port of Spain has been preferred by the government for the office of the DPP. So what you have is not prosecution. What you have is that at the office of the DPP, instead of prosecution, you have mall shopping taking place. So, you see, Madam Speaker, accommodation for the DPP is not a matter of improving the administration of justice. It is more a matter of where the allocation of rental accommodations are located. So that is physical infrastructure. What about personnel? What about the personnel of the office of the DPP? Whilst we seek to create legislation that provides significant amount of power to the DPP, additional power, and additional work, we are not concomitantly resourcing the office of the DPP. Madam Speaker, what is the position with respect to staff? At present, the DPP has a complement staff of 126 on the establishment, and there are vacancies for over 70 attorneys at law in the office of the DPP. So the question we have to ask is, are we really serious about the implementation of this legislation? Madam Speaker, it concerns me as it concerns all right-thinking citizens in this country. The Honorable Prime Minister got up and talked about the Commission of Inquiry into CLICO and the Commission of Inquiry into HCU. But that is a matter that is engaging the attention of the office of the DPP for how many years? When is that going to fructify? And I choose my word carefully, Madam Speaker. When is that going to fructify in order for charges to be laid or charges not to be laid? Either one. The CLICO matter. And that therefore, when you talk about the Honorable Attorney General spoke about complex fraud case. There is nothing so complex as that CLICO matter that engaged the attention of the law agencies in this country. When are we going to find the satisfaction from the hundreds of millions of dollars for forensic experts, for lawyer fees, for attorneys' fees, for accounting fees, It is continuing. And the question is, where is the report? I think, Madam Speaker, there is need for the DPP as a public official engaged by taxpayers of this country. We understand the independence of its constitutional remit, but there is a duty and an obligation on the DPP to inform the taxpayers of this country what is the status of that matter, CLICO matter, and the HCU matter. Yeah, I'm coming to that. So, but the cry of the DPP has always been the lack of personnel, the lack of resources associated with that. One way to stymie any kind of movement forward is to starve a department of the relevant resources, Madam Speaker. I make no insinuation or any kind of attack on anyone, but I do know if you are denied resources, then you cannot act. Your implementation and execution is simply not there. So it remains conceptually appropriate as the law allows. But the execution for action is simply non-existent because you do not have the resources to implement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so that therefore what you have in the office at that state is that you need to resource the office of the DPP, and you need to indicate that what are the needs, how you're fulfilling those needs, and what is the timeline for us to get some action in that area, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when you now deal with the issue of Marcia Ayers, Caesar, there's litigation, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Attorney General indicated that there's a particular clause that it deals with the Marcia Ayers Caesar issue, in which that is section clause 5, which is amends section 6, and that is the Marcia Ayers Caesar clause. Madam Speaker, in the High Court of Justice of Trinidad and Tobago, Civil Action 2017, Civil Action Claim Number 1, CV of 2017-03190, between the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago and Her Worship Maria Busby Earl Caddle, Chief Magistrate Acting, First Defendant, Director of Public Prosecutions, Second Defendant, the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the Criminal Bar Association, Ramchan Lakshmi Dayal, Brian C. Pasad, a minor by his friend Karen Mohammed, Desron Nero, Said Obi Albert, Raymond Thomas, interested party. Madam Speaker, every element of the criminal justice system is engaged in this matter. And how did this matter arise? And what is the impact of that on the ordinary taxpayer of this country? Madam Speaker, I read from the judgment, page 2 of 22, a few paragraphs only. These proceedings arose out of what can fairly be called the debacle which ensued following the appointment by the Judicial and Legal Services Commission of the former Chief Magistrate, Mrs. Marcia Ayers Caesar, to the High Court on 16 April 2017 in the circumstances of her having left 53 part-heard matters behind. The common factual background, as indicated in submissions in the interpretation application which the Attorney General sought before the court. Background. On 12 May 2017, Mrs. Marcia Ayers Caesar was sworn in as a puisne judge of the High Court by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Prior thereto, Mrs. Ayers Caesar held the office of Chief Magistrate. There were 53 matters commenced but not completed before the Chief Magistrate as at 12 April 2017. The pending matters comprise summary matters initiated under summary courts and indictable matters initiated under the Preliminary Inquiry Indictable Offences Act, which remain incomplete at various stages. Following Mrs. I.S. Caesar's appointment as a High Court judge, there was considerable public outcry in respect of the pending matters not having been concluded prior to her appointment. On June 1st, the DPP attended before the acting Chief Magistrate in the pending matters, and following this wrote to the Honorable Chief Justice, both as Chief Justice and Chairman of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, by letter dated June 17. Madam Speaker, and the letter is very crisp, and I merely move on to page 20 of 22 of the judgment, and this is what Justice Carol Gobin had to say. In the case of Mr. Charles, the dire consequences of his matter being rendered abortive have been disclosed in his affidavit. He was charged for murder on December 5, 2010. He has been in custody since that date at the Royal Jail in Port of Spain. The conditions there were found by this court almost 1 decade ago to be inhumane. There is no reason to believe that there has been any improvement in the conditions. The hearing of his preliminary inquiry finally began in January 2012 and spanned 5 years up until April 3, 2017, about 2 weeks before the elevation of the Chief Magistrate. There was no indication on that day that she would not be available thereafter. More than 60 witness statements had been received, and several witnesses have been cross-examined on their statements. Mr. Charles paid $150,000 for his legal representation over the period, which he cannot recover. He will have to pay for representation for a new hearing. He has no means of raising further funds for his defense. That he should have to start over is oppressive. This is the ordinary man. This is not, legislation is not going to help him now. This is what, at paragraph 31, this is what the learned judge had to say, Madam Speaker. What has happened here is a travesty of justice. The stain on the administration of justice will remain indelible long after the cries and protests of justifiably angry, suffering prisoners have gone quiet, and long after the families of victims who, too, have been waiting for justice to be done, resign themselves to further delay. It may go some small way to alleviating the pain and injustice of this on all sides if those responsible are held to account. Almost 2 years on since the Chief Magistrate elevation, the initial shock and disbelief that this could have happened has dulled, but the ill effects of public confidence in the administration of justice and the institutions which allowed this to happen, whether through lack of due diligence, as suggested by the Law Association, or recklessness, will persist. So far, the financial cost to the taxpayer is limited to the cost of litigation in this and other cases which have been filed as a result of the colossal misstep. Madam Speaker, so when you understand the context that this legislation, all the ills associated with the PI is demonstrated by this Marcia I.S. Caesar matter and outlined in Mr. Charles' affidavit. So what you have is a situation where the fact of the matter is what you have is a situation there where the preliminary inquiry continued. 53 part-heard matters had to start from the very beginning, de novo, and that the people of this country suffered at the hands of this government, the PNM administration.
Mr. Warner-West, your original time is now expired. You have 15 more minutes to wrap up your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have 7 minutes until tea. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, so that all is not well in the judiciary. All is not well in the judiciary under the watch of this administration. So if that is at the level of the magistracy, I now go on, Madam Speaker, to letters. Because you see, this matter is dealing with the administration of justice. And this is what the March 29, 2019, a letter written by Justice Carol Gobin. This is what she had to say. Dear Madam, writing to Christy Ann Morris Allen, I have recently become aware of the proposed reorganization of the judiciary as part of our criminal justice reform project. I have also seen your media dated 15 March 2019, and I have heard statements made by the president of the PSA on how these restructuring will affect the judiciary staff, which appears to indicate very different views on the matter. Judges so far have not been consulted as a group on the impact, if any, that the reorganization is likely to have on our teams and consequently on our operations. I speak for my team members, and I say that they are extremely concerned about their future with the judiciary as well as their individual job security. For my part, in the absence of full information, I am becoming concerned about the situation and any potential impact on my team. For the past 15 years since my appointment, I have been fortunate to have support staff who have been competent, hardworking, and extremely loyal. Madam Speaker, and then she goes on to indicate that all is not well in the judiciary. But, Madam Speaker, so that is at the level of the judges, and this is under the watch of the government, notwithstanding the separation of powers principle. And if there's one judge, another judge. In the public domain, Frank C. Prasad, High Court Judge, to the Chairman of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission. Dear Chief Justice, I am aware that with the pending departures of Justice of Appeal, Jamada Narayan, appointments to the Court of Appeal would have to be made. In that regard, I am reminded of the detailed process which you outlined after the appointment of Jones J.A. As per your previous representations, a merit list is valid for 1 year.
Dr. Givray?
Sure.
Can I ask you what document you're quoting?
I indicated that a letter
I didn't hear you.
Letter written by Frank C. Prasad, dated March 13, 2019. A judge. So that is the unease. That is the fear. This is what they're complaining about. This is what they're fear about. To date, however, I have not seen any advertisement with respect to the filling of vacancies in the Court of Appeal. It is my understanding that in the absence of a current and valid merit list, the process and method of appointment would require inter alia the effecting of advertisements, the attendance at interviews, and the sitting of examinations, including psychometric testing. It is, if my understanding is inaccurate, or if a new process to enable appointments is to be engaged, I ask that you please indicate the same so that all interested persons can be furnished with the requisite information so as to enable them to apply for the office of the Judge of the Court of Appeal once advertised. Yours faithfully, Frank C. Prasad. So, Madam Speaker, there is a deep level of concern at the level of the magistracy. We have seen where the chief magistrate is in hot water, was in hot water. We have seen now where judges are dealing with that they are not getting information. Things are happening around them. All is not well in the state of the judiciary. So, Madam Speaker, but we move on, because it is not only there, Madam Speaker, there is unease. This is not only there. When you look, so this is what is happening with the administration of justice internally. I want to read into the record, Madam Speaker, a letter written by the Right Honorable Jeremy Hunt, MP. And Jeremy Hunt is the British Foreign Secretary, Madam Speaker. And he's referring to Peter Tatchell, Director, Peter Tatchell Foundation. Thank you for your email of March 6th to the Prime Minister concerning allegations of judicial corruption in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the deaths of 2 Trinidad and Tobago nationals, and the recent humanitarian protection granted to a Trinidad and Tobago national. And Jeremy Hunt indicated that with respect to Mr. Dylan Johnson, the British government does not routinely comment on individual asylum cases. However, as you are already aware, Mr. Johnson has been granted humanitarian protection by the UK and is therefore granted 5 years limited leave, unrestricted access to the labour market, and can maintain mainstream benefits. So what you have in this letter is that even at the level of the international community, eyes are on our judiciary and all is not well. But we seek to hide behind the fig leaf that this legislation is a cure, that the malady will be cured by this piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, it is my intention now to go and deal with clause 4, 5, and 6 and 7 of the legislation, but I think that the tea break is upon me, so I will rest until I return.
Well, you have about 15 more seconds.
Well,
But might I ask if now is a convenient time that we... Well, virtually, it's 4:30 members. Member for Shogunas West, you will have 8 minutes and 17 seconds left after the tea break. This House is now suspended. We shall return at 5 p.m.